Hi, welcome to Q-SYS Control QuickStarts. My name is Jeff Perkins, and I'll be your host today. This episode is called Dynamic Scripting. We're going to do it through the lens of press and hold camera presets. In this episode, you can expect to learn that we can build press and hold PTZ camera presets using control components. But through the power of tables and GetComponents, we can build a dynamic presets recall script. Just like young Prince Adam from far, far away Kingdom of Eternia, fabulous secret powers were revealed to him when he held his sword above him and he said, by the power of... redacted by legal. So what it is there's this castle and it's a skull and it's got the color of, well, not quite, it's kind of the color of dirty snow. And in fact, James Martin would call it gray with an E, not gray with an A. Anyway, but I have the power and you will have the power very soon as well. And thank you for indulging me as a child of the 80s. I loved He-Man and so will you. But this really has nothing to do with He-Man. Let's just get started. Okay. I do intend to give you fabulous secret powers. So let's get on with it. As we take a little tour here, we have two PTZ cameras, which is pretty normal. You might have that in one of your basic conference rooms. And as you would expect, we have them being ran into a MediaCast router here and then passed on to the core, the video bridge on the core. And I'm sure that many of you, especially if you've done level 2, you've probably made press and hold presets kind of like this. In fact, this is how I used to do it when I got started in Q-SYS. And this works great. We've got press and hold control components being fed into low frequency oscillators that are set up kind of like this. They're square, etc. Because we're trying to make press, anyway, whatever. They're being driven into ands. So basically we're taking which camera is active off of the MediaCast router and then which, what did we press it long enough or short enough to get a save or a load, and then it goes into some snapshots. Like, this is a thing. We've done it forever. It works fine. It's very low barrier to entry. But the trade-off, of course, is well, what if I want to add camera 3? Okay, well, if I want to add camera 3, then I've got to add a whole nother snapshot bank and another thing of ands. And well, what if I wanted 4 actual preset buttons? Okay, then I just have to add another, more of these. And you see how this thing quickly becomes a little bit difficult to administer. And if anything, while it's straightforward, it also is, well, perhaps error prone. You could easily have a typo and then there'd be a problem. So this is a thing. This works great. It's totally fine. But again, like Prince Adam, you're here to be He-Man and not just Prince Adam, right? We want to turn Cringer into yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Battle Cat
is his name, I believe, if I recall correctly. So we're not going to do it that way. Instead, we are going to write a dynamic script. So let's think about our dynamic script. What are the things we're going to want? Well, I'm going to want preset buttons. In fact, let's make those preset buttons an array of controls. I know I say that a lot, right? That's actually, there's one back there. I'm not going to say about it anymore. So here we are. We have BTN preset, and we currently have it set to 3. You want 5? No problem. Bing, bing, bing. Now you got 5, but we're going to do 3. There's 3. What else might I want on a press and hold preset script? Well, it might be nice to have a combo box that lets me choose which camera I want to control. All right. The other thing that's mighty nice about this is we could make a courtesy control, i.e., we could use a knob here, as we've done here. This knob actually adjusts the hold time. Maybe I want it to be a second. Maybe I want it to be 5 seconds. Here we've configured a knob to be anywhere between 1 and 60 seconds for how long do you want to press and hold before it saves versus load. And then lastly, I'm making use of a very special control here. It's called JSON storage. Now, it's called JSON storage because this is what I called it. It's just a text box. And we're going to do something special with that text box, and yes, it's associated with JSON. So let's actually pop open our script and see what in the world am I going to do with all of this. So there we go. It's opening up, and we'll get that out of the way for now because we don't really need it. And let's just take a little tour. All right, and in fact, I can zoom in a little bit. That might be a little bit nice for now. Let's start at the top of the script. So at the top of the script, I'm making some initial declarations. Line 15, the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm actually, as you saw earlier, I'm making use of JSON. And in fact, I'm making use of the rapid JSON library. And here's how I include it. Rapid JSON equals require rapid JSON. Yeah, I could have called it something different, but why complicate it? Rapid JSON is the inclusion of the rapid JSON library. There we go. And then I make, what's that? 5 table declarations. One I've called R, cam names, basically an array. My nomenclature in all of these is I'm just being extra super duper. So an array of camera names, a table of camera devices is going to be very important because we're going to want to make use of named components. So this is going to be a table of named components for our cameras that we want to control. We're also making a table of presets. And then I'm keeping track of also a table of long pressed. I'm going to use that as a flag in some logic, as you'll see a little bit later in the script. And then a table of countdown. It's going to be a table of countdown timers. Again, we'll see those at the bottom. All right, let's continue our little tour and let's look at some JSON related functions. So the very first function here that I have here is called func print table. It takes in a table as a variable, and then frankly, it just prints out the encoding of it. Now, why do I do that? Because it's really convenient. It's a very convenient way of printing out the entirety of a table, especially if you have embedded tables, because it just prints everything. Frankly, sometimes I can't just be bothered to write embedded loops inside of loops. And so this is just, it's convenient. And I use it from time to time in the development of code. The next function is called func save JSON. And then func load JSON. Basically, the big ideas are that, remember that control that I had out here on the outside? Here it is. I'll shimmy that over for a second and shimmy this back so that I get my head out of the way. This control right here, I'm saving the data of the PTZ presets in that box to keep the data through for memory persistence reasons.
All right, fourth wall break. What Bowtie Guy is trying to say are that text boxes retain strings. Inside my script, I could have chosen to have one variable per text box per PTZ preset, but that gets unwieldy. And what I really would like to do is save all of those PTZ preset strings in a Lua table. But a Lua table, it's not a string, so I can't write a Lua table to a text box. The value of JSON is that JSON allows me to encode a Lua table into a string, which means I can have an entire table of data as a single string saved to a single text box. It's kind of like putting Han Solo in Carbonite. I can put him in and I can get him back. And with that, let's get back to the show.
So I want to here, again, I'll move this over out of the way and it's fine. I use func save JSON to encode my table of presets. and shove it into that control. And now if you look here, I actually make a little local temp variable where I do the encoding, and then I do a comparison between if what I just encoded matches or doesn't match what's already there. Basically, if what I encoded doesn't match, then I actually save out to my little control. Otherwise, I'm like, it's already there. They're identical and I don't need to save it again. So I'm saving, it's a nice touch, right? It's saving a few of those read-write cycles to memory, and that's fine. Okay, func load JSON sort of works the other way. It pulls, right? It decodes from that control and shoves it into a temporary table. And then I do just a nickel's worth of data validation. This is really its own topic, and it deserves more, but I'm doing just enough here to have a point of conversation with you. I'm just double, triple making sure that what I pulled out of that box, namely the JSON storage text box, is indeed a table, because it ought to be, because that's how it works. It ought to be a table. If it is a table, then I copy the temp to the actual, and that lets me know that I now have my Lua table of the saved presets. Okay, there's that. Now, moving on, I also have, oh, come on, be a good boy. I have, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the entirety of this function. I have an initialization script, and it is an initialization function for this particular script. So there's a number of things that I need to do when this script starts. The very first thing I want to do is I want to run func load JSON. I want to take whatever is out there in storage and bring it into my script, because I want to know that I have the saved presets available in my table of presets. Okay. The next chunk of code, right, so 64 through 72 right here, it does the first bit of magic. It runs component.getComponents. So let's look at line 64. For index comma table of components in pairs on which table? The table that we get back from running component.getComponents. What does component.getComponents do? What does it do? It gives us, right, as we've seen in a previous episode, it gives us a table of discoverable components. Okay, discoverable because remember we have to give it a code name and set its access for it to be found through this process. And what is in that table? Well, that table has indices as their keys and tables as their values. So we know, again, because we've done this before, we did it in a previous episode, we know sort of the data that we're getting back. And so we know that we want to run an inner loop on those table of components that come back. And on those tables of components, we want to look and see when we find cameras. That's what line 66 is doing. It's running through those list of components that it discovered and looking for just the cameras. Because remember, there might be NV32s, there might be TSCs, there might be amplifiers, there might be any number of other Q-SYS components that is discoverable in our design. So we just want to take the cameras and we want to do two things. One, we want to use table.insert to take the name of those cameras and put them into the array of camera names, because that's going to go into our combo box. The other thing we want to do is we want to build a table of named components. we're going to do that in our table of camera devices, table devcam. We're going to create a key, which is the camera's name. And we're going to set a value of component.new of that camera's code name. We're making a table of named components. The next thing that we do is we want to purge any cameras that are no longer in our system. Well, Jeff, why would we be purging our cameras? And why aren't we doing these as individual functions? Component.getComponents only needs to run once. It only needs to run at startup because that's the only time that the list of components in your design can change. You can't add and remove devices to your inventory in runtime. You have to go offline and you have to come back online. We only ever can get a different inventory of GetComponents when we come back online. We only ever need to run it once. So in the off case that we ran, that we lost or we removed a camera from our system, we want to be able to keep our data set nice and tidy. So there are times where we want to remove things that are no longer exist. We're just being complete here. So here we are. We're going to run through our table of presets. And if we find, we're going to run a pairs loop on the table of cameras. If we find the camera in the list, then we keep it. If we don't find the camera, then if it's in both the presets and the table of cameras, if they're both there, we keep them. If there's a discrepancy, i.e. one of the cameras went away, but it used to be present and it was in the table of presets, then we, right here, line 83, we delete it. We tell it bye-bye. And we write a little note to ourselves that we purge the camera. We'll demonstrate this in a little bit. Okie dokie. And then lastly, we want to run through this array of camera names that we found. Basically, like we found all of these cameras, right here. We found them, line 68. So for all of the cameras that we found, let's run through them. And then if the camera is not already in my preset list, then let's build a table for it. And let's populate that table with presets. And how many presets do we need? Well, however many buttons we have. So for however many preset buttons we have, let's populate our presets table indexed at that camera's code name and then indexed at the presets number with the value 0 space 0 space 0, because that is the home position on a PTZ camera. Now, that's kind of a lot, right? It's actually tables inside of tables. It's technically a multi-dimensional table that we're building, and we're checking things. Basically, we have two sets of data that we are working through. We have the cameras we found, the cameras, and then the presets associated with those cameras. And so when we find the cameras, we want to look in the table of presets to make sure that we have that camera accounted for in our table of presets. If we don't, then we want to add that camera to the table of presets and give them some actual presets that it can manipulate. And when we're all done, we save all of that to that control, that text box, to save and hold on to the JSON. Okie dokie. And then lastly, 104, I run my initialization script. I get the script up and going, and there we go. All right, let's keep moving. I have a number of controls. Really, I just have two controls that I am particularly worried about at this particular juncture. One is I need to get something into the combo box. That's line 108. You've been doing that since control 201. And then line 110, this box, in fact, I'm going to hit go so you can see what happens here. Here's our box. And in fact, I have put the box in this container so that you can see what's happening here. We have, shimmy all that around for a second. The code has run. Okay, all of our initialization script has run. So there we see that it loaded the JSON. It then ran, right here. 61 ran and says, yep, you loaded the JSON. Then 63 through 72 ran, and it tells us that we found camera 1 and camera 2. There it is, camera 1, camera 2. And then this runs and doesn't tell us anything because it found what it was expecting. And then this set of code runs and it tells us that, oh yeah, hey, I already found camera 1 and camera 2. And so it already existed. So it pops right down to 97 and there we are. And it runs func.json and it sticks all of the data back out here. Now, I did all of this to show you something. This is disabled. This is disabled because while I can see it and while I can copy it, I'm sort of protecting you from yourself, because what we don't want to have happen is you accidentally double click on this and then try to change something about the data in this data structure. Because what if you do it wrong? If you do it wrong, then everything breaks and it kind of goes wonky. But as we sit right now, because I've disabled this, I've created a little space for me to save to and from, and I don't have to worry about the integrity of my saved data. That being said, if you really want to, you can turn off line 110 and turn on this event handler, and you can manipulate your data if you want to. But again, danger, Will Robinson, we're not doing any data validation here. So you could break it and you could mess it up and you could say something silly like make the camera go to position 10 because that's just not how the camera works. Or you could even just enter completely malformed data and that would be totally bad. So I've protected you from yourself by disabling the storage box and commenting out the event handler. So that being said, that's why that's there and that's why that's the way it is. Now, let's turn to the last bit here and let's look at the magic. Here's the magic. It takes 25 lines of code. It takes about 25 lines of code to make dynamic preset recalls for those buttons. Here's how it works. Line 118. For every button in the array of controls, I wish it would stop highlighting. Okay. For every preset button in the array of controls, we want to do the following. We want to create an associated long pressed array variable, and we're going to set it to be false. We're going to set it low. We also are going to create in the countdown table at that particular index a timer. We're creating an associated countdown timer. Line 122 through 125 is us defining the event handler for the countdown timer. Basically, when the timer goes ding, meaning that we've had a long press, what do we want to happen? Well, we want to stop the timer and we want to set that long pressed array variable to be high. Because if it's high, that tells us, ooh, we pressed it long enough. And then line 127, we're going to write the event handler for that preset button. So here it is. One of the things I should have pointed out that I didn't make clear earlier is we defined those preset buttons to be momentary buttons. It's really important that you recognize that these buttons, these preset buttons, are momentary buttons. As you may recall from our studies on the event handler, the way the momentary buttons action works is when I poke it, it transitions from low to high, and it stays high for however long I got my finger on the button. And as soon as I take my finger off the button, it transitions from high to low. Both of those, right, poking it and letting go, creates an event handler and another event handler. So here's why that's important. Line 128. When the momentary button is pressed and it goes from false to true, from low to high, I'm going to set the long pressed array variable to be low, and I'm going to start that timer. Remember, my finger's on the button. As soon as I put my finger off the button, what happens? Line 131 executes, because that's when the button is released and it goes from true to false. So when the momentary button is released, we're going to do a little check. We're going to check the long pressed flag. If the long pressed flag is true, is high, if we pressed it for long enough, then we want to write the new preset. We're going to overwrite what's in our table of presets with whatever our actual camera is saying for its ptz.preset control. And then we save that data. Otherwise, what happens is when I let go of the button and I didn't press it for long enough, i.e. it was a short press, i.e. it was not a long press, then what do I want to do? I actually want to recall the existing preset. I do that by overriding the camera's ptz preset controls.string with whatever it is I had stored in my table of presets. So I either write the new preset or I recall the existing preset. And when I'm done, I set the flag low, and that's it. It's 25 lines of code. It's 25 lines of code, and it's magical, and it works. I know we're running kind of long, but let's see this sort of thing do its magic in real time. So shimmy that up, and here it is. And the way that we've written this, it's going to write into the debug window useful pieces of debugging. So here is our deal. We have camera 1. So I've selected camera 1. Let's see, can I zoom in a little bit? I guess I can. There we are. I have selected camera 1. And we can see the PTZ coordinates of camera 1 here. When I press right here, ding, it tells you. It was a short press. It was poop. And so it recalled camera 1's, right here, recalled camera 1 preset 1, and it moved from 000 to 0.800, which is what we expected. If I press number 2, it tells me we recalled camera 1 preset 2, and it moved from this position to that position. Same thing, recall preset number 3, and that's fine. So let's go back to preset number 2. That's okay. And let's do the press and hold. I'm going to overwrite that preset number 3 because it's kind of weird. It's fine. Here we are. I'm going to clear that so you can see it happen really good. I'm going to press. Doot, doot, doot. I know it's extra long. I mean, it was 1 second. I'm just being dramatic. And when I let go, you can see, oh, we saved camera 1's preset number 3. It used to be negative 0.475, 0.1, and 0, and it's now 0, 0, 0. And we ran func save JSON, and notice right over here in our table, our JSON string that we see out here, that preset number 2 updated and changed. Okay, one last thing before we go, because it works the same, right? I can choose camera 2, and I can recall. There it is, recall camera 2, preset 1. That's preset number 2. That's preset number 3. You can see that's totally working. Let's add that third camera. So let's go offline. Let's come to design elements. Let's come to inventory. I've added camera 3 already to I've added camera 3 already to my inventory. I just haven't deployed him. So let's deploy camera 3. There's camera 3. Let's come to properties and notice, right, it's code name. Let's give him a better code name. Camera 3. And remember, we have to give him script access. So let's set script access to all. Once we do that, let's open. Don't need that guy. Don't need that guy. Let's open this guy again. And shimmy this back over so we can see everything nice and well. And let's give it a shot. Hit go. And here's what we see happen. We see that we ran our initialization script. Here it is, line 61. We ran func load JSON. 64 through 72 ran. Oh, we found cameras 1, 2, and 3. All right. Then 75 through 86 runs and doesn't do anything because we're not purging anything. And then 89 through 99 run and says, oh, hey, we already had camera 1 and we already had camera 2. But we've done you the courtesy of adding camera 3. And then, lastly, line 101, func save JSON. And notice what happened to our window over here. We now have camera 3. It's in our table of presets. And it has 3 presets. Why does it have 3 presets? Because we configured the script to have 3 presets. If we had configured it to have more, it would have had more. And by default, it set those presets to the home position, 0, space 0, space 0. All right, lastly, let's see it do the purge. Let's go offline. Let's select camera 3. Let's hit delete. So we're back to only having camera 1 and camera 2. Maybe our guys didn't pay their bills, and or maybe they were just demoing a camera or renting it for the weekend or something. Whatever. Whatever. So let's try it again. Hit go. And here's our script. It runs again. Runs the initialization script. Again, remember, it only needs to run the initialization script at the beginning because component that gets components doesn't change while the system is running. So when it runs, it starts the script. It runs line 61, right? Func load JSON, pulled in the data from the JSON storage. We then run through 64 through 72, and it says, hey, we found camera 1 and camera 2. And then here are 75 through 86 runs. And oh, this time it tells us, hey, we purged camera number 3 because it doesn't exist anymore. Awesome. And then it runs 89 through 99 and tells us, oh, hey, cameras 1 and 2 already exist, so we're all good. And then lastly, it saves out the JSON and keeps it saved. Okay, my friends, let's close this. Yep, close, get out of the way. Just like young Prince Adam, fabulous secret powers have now been revealed to you. This is how you write a dynamic script. It dynamically assesses what's out there, and then because it uses an array of controls, all you got to do is increase or decrease the count, and it's dynamically writing the code for you. I can change the number of cameras, I can change the number of presets, and the code is writing itself. That's part of the goals of having dynamic scripting. The code is writing itself at this point. It can get bigger, it can get smaller, it can pivot, it can do a number of different things in ways that this approach just isn't going to be able to give you in a very easy, scalable way. So dynamic scripting, the power is yours. With that, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.